Hey guys, Jeremy, National Fire Radio, along with my cohort and probably the smarter. I'm not going to give you better looking, but I'll give you smarter personality on National Fire Radio, Rob Ridley. Hey, Rob.
What's going on, Jeremy?
How are
Brent,
you,
thank
buddy?
you for coming on.
Oh
I'm
no,
good.
thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a friend and a rock star on with us tonight. We met him about a month ago now, and I just so excited to get him on because he brings forth a whole different avenue of who and what we've interviewed in the past. And without further ado, Captain Brent Brooks out of the Toronto Fire Services, 27 years in the fire service with Toronto. He's currently assigned to the high-rise unit, which we're going to hop into all of that. Brent, Captain, thanks for joining us tonight, pal.
Glad to be here. Good to see you guys.
Absolutely. You know, it's a lot of fun to see you again. We spent 3 days together a month ago working on a live streaming project for Snaptide Hose, and that event was a bookmark in our chapter as a platform and with Snaptide, and it was an honor to have you there. One representing Canada. I mean, it's just I haven't talked to many. You know, we haven't had. Rob, have we had anyone on from Canada on the show?
Technically, when we were in Buffalo, one of the guys jumped in because he always gets the parking tickets in Harrisburg. So
that's right. That's right. But other than that, it's exciting, Brent, to have you on tonight. You know, Canada's our northern friends, but you guys do things just a little bit different, but a lot the same. But it's exciting tonight to have you on the show because I'm looking forward to hearing your backstory. Like I alluded to, we worked on a project together for 3 days. We did a roundtable at Snaptight with a couple incredible guests and yourself. And I just thought that event was overwhelming for myself. It was just so great, and it was a great night. So it's nice now though to have some quiet time to really get to know you through this podcast tonight. So thank you for joining us. It's an absolute honor to have you. Any questions, comments before we get rolling? Because the people want to know.
There's one thing I just want to know from Brent is if he's recovered going back to Canada for driving on the other side of the road since it changed up here in America for him when he tricked us.
That's right. I did trick you.
For everybody that's listening, Brent played the ultimate joke on Jeremy and I when we were going to dinner. And he started telling us that he was talking to his wife, and he said, "Yeah, babe, I'm doing a really good job. Even this driving on the other side of the road thing isn't as hard as I thought it would be." And everybody in the car stopped and looked at each other in a brief panic. And then we realized that in Canada, they drive on the same side of the road as we do. And he got us. That was
good, yeah.
Yeah, well, hold on. Okay, so Canada, I mean, it's just over the northern border. I mean, for me to get to Canada, it's like 6 hours, not even 5 hours, right? 5-6 hours to get to the border. But I don't know anything about Canada, man. I don't know what area is the French, French Canada, right? And then you have and then Toronto is mostly English speaking, correct?
It is, yeah.
It's all English speaking, right? But Quebec is the French, right?
It is, yeah. They're pretty much our entire Olympic team. The great hockey players come from there, and our armed forces. So we really need that province.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. So we're gonna get a little Canadian history tonight too. But you do drive on the same side of the road as us.
We do.
And I do want to get into smuggling you across the border to come in for our project, which we could share a laugh about that later. But why don't we hop in? Enough of Rob and I going at it here. Let's hop in with you. And I'd really love to get to know Brent Brooks and your love and passion that I know you have for the fire service. But let's start at chapter 1. I mean, how did you get mixed up in the fire service and what set you off on your career?
Well, it wasn't easy. My entire family, my dad, his 4 brothers, everyone's a cop, and everyone was trying to direct me down that same path. And not that there's anything wrong with the police, but just throughout my life, I was in the Canadian Armed Forces, and I just like to help people. And every time there was something on the beach or there's someone hurt, I was always kind of running up and seeing if I can help. So I did do the police foundations. I went to college for to become a cop. And then I finally told my dad and his brothers, I said, listen, I said, I want to be a firefighter. And the rivalry between cops and firefighters. So anyways, every family union's tough. I can hold my own. And I know I did pick the better of the two careers, but yeah, that's how I kind of got into firefighting, just for the love of it.
That's but you got that through a home built on help, right? I mean, you have a service oriented family that really set you up for success in understanding the importance of service to your community and to your fellow citizen. I think those foundational blocks are imperative.
Brent, you said you were in the Canadian Armed Forces?
I was as a reservist, and I did communications. And funny enough, I don't know how many years later, but we've made communication systems on our high-rise unit, and it's stuff that I learned back when I was in the military. So it's I'm certainly glad I did that reserve time, and it's helped me in the fire service, and kind of launching our fire department forward when it comes to these complicated buildings.
I think that it's one of the cool things about everybody up in Canada is that, like, you guys are constantly tweaking things and working on things to make them safer, better, but even more importantly, more aggressive to serve the citizens. And like a lot of people, I don't want to say they get turned off by that, but they think that you're trying to like ruin the fire service, but you guys are really doing things that enhance the fire service so much. And I always think that's awesome, because I've got the chance to meet with some people from Ottawa as well. And just the things that you guys are doing is fantastic.
Well, we're certainly a little bit underestimated. I spoke at a conference in the States, Making the Stretch, and I said I was from Canada, and you get the igloos and you get the bobsled type jokes.
Yeah.
And this one firefighter said to me, he goes, I'm from a real big department. We have 8 stations, 2 trucks per station type thing. I'm like, oh, he goes, what do you have in your city? I said, well, we have 84 stations, 3,000 firefighters. We have 3,000 high rises. And he goes, no, not your entire country. What about your city? I said, that is our city. We have 84 fire stations. And
that's ridiculous. I mean, I said, I don't know much about Canada, but come on.
Yeah, we're second as far as second in New York City as far as the amount of high-rise buildings, and we kind of jockey back and forth between Chicago and us.
I was floored when you had told us that you have over 3,000 high-rises, and the how prevalent high-rise fires are for you. And so on. I mean, I know we're jockeying ahead in this interview right now to really dive into this, but, understanding that really sets us up to really take on an understanding how important specializing your tactics and response is then based upon your fires, and the bread and butter fires that you guys have are typically high-rise fires.
And it was, and the reason why we went with the whole high-rise unit thing is we talk, truck companies, we talk engine companies, rescue companies and squad companies, and how they work together. And we found that we were missing one of the key components, and that was something that was specialized to high-rise firefighting. So we do have 2 dedicated high-rise trucks, rides with 4 firefighters, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. And we're the specialists that come and, solve those issues that are, when that high-rise fire comes in, we're the troubleshooters, and we have the tactics to kind of back everything up that you can't traditionally carry on a normal fire truck just because of the size. Like even behind me, you can see there's 2 giant 30-inch fans there. Very rare that you can fit that on a normal pump or engine.
Brent, can you, like, one of the things I always think is interesting is what is the definition of a high rise? And I think everybody's kind of got a little bit of difference to it, but so we have a baseline for you. What is your definition of what a high rise building is?
So we're 6 stories and up. I think the code is 75 feet. I hope I got that right, because we're metric, not imperial, but it's 75 feet out of reach of the aerial ladder. But that is the way the codes look at it. The way we look at it as firefighting is anything that's standpipe equipped. So we can actually have a single story, like a Home Depot, which is a high-rise building on its side, is standpipe equipped. we're going to use those same tactics. I think it was 2 days ago, the high-rise unit was at a residential house fire. There's a picture of me with this really odd-looking nozzle.
I saw that. Yeah.
Right. So why is a high-rise at a residential bungalow house fire? Because that's some of the same tactics with high-rise firefighting we can use on a residential balloon frame construction. So we have that cockloft nozzle. We call it the opposing tip nozzle. We have a 38 millimeter or 1.5 inch Bresnan. We have a 65 millimeter Bresnan on a pole. So we have these different techniques for getting those difficult to reach fires when it comes to residential. When it goes to high-rise, we're using it for exterior cladding. We're using it for those curtain walls, the voids that are inside of buildings. So we just have to, whichever building we're going to, residential, warehouse, high rise, we just pick how we're going to use the tactics on our truck.
All right.
They almost drop the name high rise and call it a tactics truck, really.
Yeah. So how do you, I mean, Toronto had to adopt this, right? The culture, the fire service culture had to adopt this change. I mean, how old are these high-rise companies or tactic companies?
So we had a high-rise unit way back in 1998. So we've had it staffed since 1988. The problem back then, we looked at 2 high-rise units that are in New York City,
right.
A high-rise Honda unit that's in Jersey City, but they're not operated the same as us. But that was a good idea as far as what equipment should be carried on the truck. What happened with the first generation of high-rise truck, because they didn't know how to run it, they would just send it to every high-rise fire. And it didn't really fall into our instant command structure. And the truck had a bad name on it called U-turn 1, because it would always go and turn left and left.
I like that. That's good.
We actually made up a crest, with just the Maltese cross and the U-turn symbol on it. I don't know if I can talk about when I came down to the high rise, but I came down to the high rise unit because it was specialty. It was unique. We had one in the city. So I said, all right, I'll come down and try it out. So I did. And then I started realizing there's a big disconnect between the way that the designers are building these buildings and the theories that firefighters have on how we think we should be fighting these fires. So I started looking into those problems and trying to complete that disconnect between designers and how we fight fires. So I joined the Council of Tall Buildings. It's actually based out of Chicago, but there's chapters all over the world. And I think to date, I'm the only boots on the ground firefighter that's actually part of that Council of Tall Buildings. So in doing that, every time there's a building built in the city of Toronto, I'll actually go tour it with the Council of Tall Buildings. I'll have the designer, the architects, everyone that had input on that building. They know I'm a firefighter, and I ask those difficult questions. I say, well, how do you expect us to fight a fire in your building? And they tell me. I said, how do you expect us to get smoke out of the building? And they tell me. I go, how would you think that we would do a mass evacuation in their building? And they tell me. And what I'm finding is there's a big difference between our theory as firefighters fighting those type of fires and doing our tactics to what the building designer and architects actually think that we're doing. So in saying that, we've developed tactics that work for those specific buildings.
I love that, because I've noticed so often, like in my community, that the fire prevention office and subcode officials who approve the plans, then if they're not hands-on firefighters anymore, and then you look at where standpipes are installed or the FDCs are positioned on the building, and or the access to the rear, things like that, in the preliminary stages you have some influence in changing. Man, it drives me nuts when on a practical level we go to use it and I'm like, who the hell authorized this? Who put this in?
And it's true. And I don't know if you guys have the same pre-plans that we have up here, but it's a book that's in every single high rise, but it tells us how to use a fire extinguisher. It tells us how to do, certain things. And I personally think we should have a fire attack plan versus a pre-plan. Pre-plans for the occupants and security guards. We need a fire attack plan. So when I pull up, where's your FDC connections? What's the ventilation profile of the building? What class of system? Because all that we have to take into consideration. Because I know in the States, you're predominantly class 1 system. Up here in Canada, we're class 3. And a good SOP in the States will tell you you exclusively hit from the floor below. Now, our buildings, after talking to designers that have pressurized stairwells and that are sprinklered, they want us to hit it from the fire floor if the hallway is clear. So there is a little bit of difference, and not every building's the same. So I would like to see almost like a placard on the outside of the building that tells us, here's your ventilation profile, here's your fire attack strategy, here's the type of system you have, and then right away we can get the ball rolling. Class 2 systems, I know in the States, and same with Canada, we like to stretch from the truck. But we have brand new buildings that are being built that are Class 2 that have an FDC connection and a fire pump, and it can give us the pressures that we want. Not that that's a right thing. I would rather not see any Class 2 worldwide, but we have strategies for those difficult buildings, and they're 14-story Class 2 buildings, not your typical 5 to 6 that you see in the States.
Interesting. So so being a part of that Council of Tall Buildings and then being involved in the high-rise unit, I mean, this really has become a lifestyle passion of the job section of it, right? I mean, this is a real specific discipline within the fire service that not many people are familiar with to begin with, let alone become well instructed or taught and then become an educator in that discipline. Did you find I know we kind of skipped ahead in your career and we got right to the high rise stuff, but I know how prevalent that is with your everyday, with your own training company and within the city of Toronto and all of that. I mean, this is what you live and breathe. But when you were coming through the ranks, what got you there? Was it the excitement of something different? Was it the challenge of a new company? I mean, what got you to start thinking that this is the avenue you wanted to travel?
Well, I was 12 years on a rescue. I think you might call them squads in the States, and running a highway calls, and it was fantastic. And then when we amalgamated with other departments, so six fire departments became one. I just said, "What's the busiest hall?" Never saw it, never drove by it. What's the busiest station? It's got a high-rise unit, a command vehicle, platoon chief, district chief. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So put a transfer sheet in, got down there, got assigned to the high-rise, and started running high-rise calls. But there was something missing in my career. I wasn't going to conferences. I wasn't, I thought I was into the job. I thought I knew everything there was about high-rise firefighting because at that time I had 12 years on. So then we had, in 2010, we had a real bad fire, 2 Maydays. It was the high-rise unit that we were on. I was driving the chiefs. I was the fit that day, running staging from 2 floors below, and we had the Mayday. We almost lost firefighters. And that fire went for 5.5 hours without us being able to extinguish it. After that, I learned that I know very little about high-rise firefighting, and not just me, but our department and our city, and we had to make improvements. So that's when I started reading, a lot of reading, trying to understand these buildings. After I was well-read, I started going to conferences. So HROC, I've been there every year with the exception of the COVID year. So that's 6 or 7 times now.
And with that, though, how challenging was it to find specific content on this discipline? I mean, I know guys have written books, but I can't imagine there's a plethora of information out there being shared through practical experience because, frankly, it's not happening every day.
No, and the Dave McGrail's book and Matt Stuckey's book are really the only 2 books out there. We can Google stuff and see what FD&Y are doing. You know, they had the KO blanket at the time. They had the floor below nozzle at the time. So we went out and purchased that stuff. But what you really need is the hands-on. Yeah. And we found the KO blanket was too difficult to set up. It really had to be coordinated. And you have firefighters working above the fire, below the fire, and we weren't successful. We did get the floor below nozzle. And then we thought, hey, we gotta come up with our own type of thing here because we got 3,000 high-rise buildings and we're having, lots of high-rise fires. So then we kind of took it to the next level, and we have a plan A, plan B, plan C if things start to fail on us.
What was the creative process in coming? Because like you're 2010, and I'm thinking in my fire service career, we have high-rise fires figured out, and it's either you're doing them or you're not, And
Yeah.
typically the people who are not doing them, they're going to roll the dice and it's either going to come out or guys are going to get hurt. And then we have incidents in major cities where firefighters are going to have maydays or, God forbid, like they had down at Vidalia Avenue, lose their lives. And it's going to start this discussion. What was the creative side of this to figure this out? You talk about being well read. Was there a point where you were doing this research that all of a sudden like the light bulb started to click and you were like, okay, now I got it? And can you kind of hit on that light bulb moment where you started to move forward with developing the tactics and everything else to kind of, make this into something?
Well, yeah. So the way that I was trained, I believed it.
Yeah.
This is the way you go to the academy, and you believe everything that you're taught. And really, a lot of things hadn't changed in the fire service. So here we are trying to make a push down a hallway with an 1.5 inch hose line and a fog nozzle, and we can't make the push. And I remember hearing in the States that they were using 2.5 inch hose line with smoothbore nozzles. And I'm thinking, well, that's just, US, hooah, look how tough I am type thing. There's no way we're going to drag 2.5 inch hose line with smoothbore down a hallway. That's a US thing. Anyways, then we had several fires and I said, we cannot make the push. Maybe the US is onto something here. So obviously I made the trips at least twice to New York City every year, the H-Rock, Chicago, and kind of figured out their tactics. Then we started implementing their tactics, found that they worked, and we simply improved upon it after that. So it was really by experience of not being able to put out a fire is what made us try even harder to find those solutions.
It's crazy.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
No, I mean, it's just because, like you said, I believe the stuff that we were taught, and I was like, all right, this is what will work. And I, especially after meeting you, I'm like, I think we need to look at this again.
And even now that we're set up, like we have the proper hose and nozzle package, a very, very big department contacted me and they said, listen, we got some money. What's the one thing that we should buy for high-rise firefighting? And I'm like, well, do you have a gate and gauge? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh boy, are you using smoothbore? And they're like, no. I'm like, and so then we talked about, would you go to a house fire and put duct tape over top of your pump panel and not know your pressures? And their answer of course we wouldn't do that. So a lot of departments are still struggling and way behind the 8 ball as far as you need the gate and gauge. You need a bleed valve for firefighter safety. You need the smoothbore to be able to pass standpipe debris. So the more we can spread the word, the more those departments can change and just come up with a standard.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you the time that we spent together last month on that project that we worked on with SnapTight, I was floored by the conversations we were having, whether it was at the factory or after hours, having a couple of sodas and just talking shop. It was really unbelievable. And then we shot some content with you. Rob and yourself disappeared in the factory and shot some Instagram content that we put out on Instagram. And we're going to get some of it out on Facebook and so on. But there was a lot of interest when we do these videos, these short educational pieces of, how different people operate and so on. What I found was the content we posted for you with you, teaching your little tips, tricks, and hacks and things like that, or the way you guys operate. Your high-rise bag in particular, your appliance bag, that thing got so much play and such conversation started because frankly, what you guys did was it's tried and true, right? You guys came up with ideas and thoughts and learned from others and then crafted it to make it your own. And everything in that bag and all the equipment you spoke about, I mean, so well in depth and why you have it and how it operates. And I just have to believe in a discipline like this, you got to know that stuff.
Yeah, and it really all happened is once we had the kit, we had to train 3,000 firefighters on how to use it. And being there every day, training those firefighters, still being on shift as well, I found the mistakes that a lot of firefighters were making. So it's good for me to see the mistakes. You just didn't drop a kid off and expect them to use it. So seeing, the way they were doing door control or the way they were controlling nozzle reaction and making the push down the hallway, everyone was doing it different. So we kind of standardized it, and we came up with real specific areas inside that kit, so we could grab something in zero visibility, or we could troubleshoot better. We were preparing for that second in crew that was coming in, and everything is kind of falling into place. And after we train those 3,000 firefighters, we're actually on a phase 2, which is, we call it the shoelace drill, adding to the front. So we add 50 feet to the front section. So there's no need to go back to the standpipe, shut it down, and truly move 200 to 250 feet of hose. We're only moving 50 feet, and we only shut down for seconds.
We gotta talk about. We're gonna talk about that in depth because you blew a lot of minds, and it's funny to watch you explain it because people don't understand what you're saying, or it bucks tradition to the utmost. That, like, right, Rob? I mean, how many people were struggling with that idea of adding 50, adding 50, adding 50? And I just, watching people struggle with it, they couldn't even comprehend it, Brent.
Yeah. And it's great. And just the way our 50-foot section mark, you grab the midsection, which is the 25-foot mark. That's a perfect stretch when you're under the protection of the nozzle firefighter to actually lay that line. We also know when we drop our packs, the first fold that we grab will give us the perfect stretch on a return stairs. The second fold give us a perfect stretch on a scissor stair. So we've taken the science to every single hand movement into consideration, so that when these firefighters come, they know how to orientate the bail, they know how to add a length, they know the standpipe, kits by their right or left leg, depending on which way they're going down the hallway. So we've been adding our drills into our firefighters, and if we find a problem, we add that to the drill. And now that we're on phase 2, it's fantastic. We get 2 firefighters to move 350 feet of hose by themselves.
That was going to be one of my
upstairs,
questions.
across the hallway, back up another set of stairs.
I know people,
because they're not moving the full length; they're only moving the 50 feet.
Yeah, I know people will sometimes like resist 2.5-inch hose, especially departments with low manpower. One of the things that I started to really kind of comprehend from our time in the factory was that this is not a thing that's it's not bad, like, and it's not going to be something that we have to fear. And I was like, the one thing that I was disappointed about our trip to Snap Tight was that I didn't have gear, and you and I couldn't hook up to a standpipe with your setup, so I could actually see it in motion. But like, you really, like, 4 people can do this. I mean, you just said 2 people can do this. So it really, it's like you literally planned every move for the crew, so it can become muscle memory.
We have, and the key thing with muscle memory too is a lot of people think, well, you're teaching them this muscle memory, so when things don't go as planned, you're going to set them up for failure. We have a 7-story tower with a 50-foot long hallway, so we actually, not that we set them up for failure, but we look at all the problems that can go wrong, and every floor we add that problem into it. So let's say we grab a bite and we drive it to form 2 loops. Well, maybe on the next floor, we don't give them that option to be able to drive and find 2 loops. We'll say you need to preload the hose. The next one, when we go up a flight of stairs with only 2 firefighters, we'll say, okay, leave the nozzle here, preload the landing, grab the nozzle tip, move it forward. So our drills aren't just one movement, it's multiple movements, because we don't know what we're going to have. Some departments exclusively enter the unit to the hinge side. Well, we entered the hinge side, we entered the lock side, and we go straight in, just to give them that, that different muscle memory. Because if shit goes wrong, you have to have options.
I'm sitting here listening to you, and it's like you can tell how ingrained this is into you, and it's probably because you crafted a lot of this through trial and error and conversation and doing all that learning yourself. I mean, you hit on before that you had a fire years ago that really forced you or opened your eyes to say, I got to learn more about this. We got lucky on this one, and we need to do better, right? Yeah. And I remember, if that's a story that you told me, yes. I mean, it was, thankfully, it didn't go any more south than it did, and so on. But then it's that personal push to better yourself, which then betters the department. And you talked about the cultural change of, because all your companies operate this way, correct? I mean, this is a departmental mandate and training segment that every company needs to understand how to operate in the high rises, since you have 3,000 high rises that you guys are consistently going to.
Right. And what's awesome about us now is because everyone's using 2.5-inch hose lines now. Every vehicle in our city has 150 feet, 2.5 with a smoothbore nozzle, 1 1/8 tip. We don't know when the high rise unit's going to get there. We could come on the third alarm, late on the second. We don't know. But as long as those companies have that 2.5 laid, all we're going to do is add something to the front section to make it better. Or we're going to go 2 floors above the fire, or 1 floor below the fire, or we're going to cut a 45 off a door for pressurization. So en route to a fire, the high-rise captain and crew, we're listening to see what's going on. If communications are bad, we'll put communications modules in the building. If it's a wind-impacted fire, we're going to use our floor below tactic. We're going to bring a ground monitor for the hallway, and we're also going to drop a resident from 2 floors below. So we have 3 tactics just for a wind-impacted fire, whereas before we just used to send our firefighters down there and they would take a beating and a beating and beating. Eventually the fire would get small. But now, high-rise fires are smoke events, not real big fire events. We're putting the fires out quicker.
Yeah, and so I guess the other part of where I was going to, and all of this, right? But the cultural change is one. You have to educate through know-how, and then you have to prove it to 3,000 brothers and sisters that this new methodology and the U-turn 1 truck is now becoming an important play in the city of Toronto, right? So
that was hard.
I can't imagine. It's hard to change 50 guys.
Yeah, it was an absolute nightmare. But
consistency, hard work, I'm sure, has everything to do with it. How challenging was it to educate your command staff and the chiefs that are making decisions? Because I think a lot of times too, it's one thing you tell the backstep firemen, this is how we're doing it, and you train on it. They're like, okay, this is what I know, this is what I do. It's the other thing where now you have 2 specialized companies. Now you're established, but when you started to make that cultural change and focusing on high-rise fires and putting specialized equipment and tactics together to fight these type of fires, you have a command staff that was so straight ahead, and now you're offering and introducing all these new ideas. Take advantage of this company and put them to work, but they have to be educated and understand all those processes too, no?
And it was almost impossible. And sometimes I wanted to give up because I would bring up your Meridian Plaza fires and all these fires that happened in the States. And I was exhausted. I had told every fire out there worldwide that was catastrophic. And then I changed my tactic and I started keeping tracks of the fire we had. So in 2019, we had 4 fires, significant high-rise fires that we really struggled at. And I said, hey, what happened here? We had 6 lines on this apartment and we couldn't put it out. And we, hemmed and hawed. And I said, so then I went armed with what is happening in our city. We were unsuccessful here. We struggled. And basically when I educated our management, I said, knowing what you know now, can we continue to operate this way? And the answer is no.
Right.
I basically made a collage of what Bill Guston says, Ray McCormick, and I had all these collages and all these, 2.5 and 1 1/8 tip and know your flow and the heat release rates now of today's high-rise buildings and the contents. And when I came up with that math, and I used Paul Grimwood as well out of London, England, he was actually did some ride-alongs with FDNY. And when we could show the science behind it, it was a no-brainer. And that persistent and changing my tactic, and I never got mad, never got angry. I just, lost the battle that day, but I knew eventually I would have to win the war. And we have. We actually might add 2 more high-rise units to our city for a total of 4.
I think that's you just said something that was really important to me, and you said the science the science is going to show us the way here, kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, screwed it up, but the science, like how, because I think there's been times in the fire service where there have been people who have used just a little bit of science for an agenda. So how did you present that? Because I think there's like, and I think I've seen it with transitional attack is probably the one that really, like, there was nobody read the whole report and all the studying wasn't actually done, and people were just like, hey, like, we're going to do this now and that's the new way of doing it. But like, how did you make that happen with getting people to see the science? Like, because that had to be, because I can only imagine, like, Robert Lee as a firefighter, if I don't want to do this, I'm going to try to be like, oh well, Brent said this, this, and this, but I'm going to leave out the three other parts. Like, how did you
Well, it was tough, and I think I told you when we were down at Snaptight, I said I remember going in telling one chief, and he's long retired now. He's like, Brooks, you know how many times I've taken the elevator to the fire floor? Do you know how many times I've used the occupant hose to put out a fire? And you're telling me now that we should always go 2 floors below. You're telling me now we have to go to 2.5-inch hose line. He goes, and I basically said, your good luck has taught you bad habits. I said, you haven't had that bad fire. And of course, you get mad and angry. But the reality is he hadn't had those bad fires. He hadn't had that experience. So then I started grabbing guys that were in those bad fires, especially, recently. I said, hey, what happened to you in that fire? I don't know, Brooksy. We got down the hallway. It was hot. We couldn't make the push. We put it to fog stream. The nozzle started clogging. I'm like, okay, perfect. Now we have something. The nozzle clogged on you because of standpipe debris. So that was it. Hey, chief, this is multiple nozzle clogs because of a fog nozzle, because of standpipe debris. We have to switch to smoothbore. You're right. Then we took the sciences. What are we flowing? And we're we were flowing, gross. It was horrible. So then in order to flow what we needed to, we had to go to the 2.5. And now that we're there, we had to figure out how we're going to move it. Because firefighters, we come in all different shapes and sizes and physical abilities. We need to have something that would work for everybody. And that's how we did it. We found a better way to move fire hose that we could, add to the front, move 50 feet at a time and get firefighters moving it.
Which I think is interesting, right? You guys developed your own high-rise packs through trial and error, right? You guys worked with Snaptight, which we've talked about previously on different, platforms or what have you. But Snaptight was willing to work with Toronto Fire Service in determining the best possible lines for your high-rise setups. You want to talk? Would you mind talking about that process? And then, kudos to Snaptight for willing to work with you. But you guys wanted midpoints, certain lengths, certain diameter, certain materials, and so on. And maybe you could just give a little background on that project and how involved that was, and then what the final packages are. Because I know on social media people have been asking, what style bundle is that? The Denver bundle? How do you guys do this? So it would just be insightful for you to share that with us.
Yeah, so we do run with the Denver pack. So we have a mark at 32 inches, and that 32-inch mark is really for packing it up at the end of the day. And then we have a nice broad mid mark, which is the 25-foot section, and that's what we use to deploy on scissor stairs, and we also use that mid mark when we're adding to the front section of the hose line. It was hard. It was almost as hard as getting a smoothbore nozzle at that time, because we're asking for rubber hose, and rubber hose has such a bad stigma in our department because we tried a different manufacturer and we couldn't pull it off the truck. We had 8 trucks, very, very hard to pull off, and we didn't like the way it kinked, yada, yada, yada. And now making a pitch to go with rubber hose for our high-rise packs. But again, it was a different manufacturer. Even the feel of the hose was different, but we tested everything. We went to all the manufacturers, tested all the hose. And it's not that high-rise fires are lighter fires that we need lightweight hose. The hose meets all the burst pressure, all the friction tests, everything that we needed, but we truly did need to be lightweight because we're walking, multiple, sometimes multiple city blocks just to get to the fire location. or if the elevator's down, we have to hump upstairs. We have to do a 2-story stair climb every time regardless. And we're in no good condition to actually fight a fire once we do that. So once we, I think Snaptite added 4 extra strands in it to meet the burst pressures that we wanted. They added the mid marks for us. They got us a hose that I'm proud we're using it. Again, we trained 3,000 firefighters on it. We truly put it through its tests, and now we bottle load or shoulder load it. It's cleaner. We can clean it. Very, very happy.
Much lighter, right?
Yeah.
Much lighter.
Very lighter.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, that and I love that's just another step in the process, right? Because the time we spent together a month ago, you have tremendous amount of videos on your phone that you were showing us and sharing with us, because a lot of your concepts and tactics are different than what we're accustomed to. And it's a different way of doing it, but the outcome is there. The proof's in the pudding, if you will. And that's through trial and error. So I do want to say, outside of all of this, you do have your own training company, and your website has all this information on it, correct?
It does. And I got 10 videos just on the standpipe kit. Other videos are in the works, but
Good.
I think the most important one was 10 videos on just the standpipe kit. And then there's multiple PowerPoint presentations that you can screenshot if you want to use it for your department to get, the same type of stuff that we have.
Awesome.
Also stay tuned for smoke movement. I just showed a video today of a flow path that we had set up with artificial smoke, but we use spiral ducting to clear smoke out of our wind impacted fire. And what day was it? Friday. I took one of our chiefs who wasn't a believer down. I said, Chief, I'm going to clear smoke out of this wind impacted fire unit, and I'm not using any fans. I'm just using spiral ducting. And he kept shaking his head, and I showed him. He goes, well, what type of gypsy magic is this? He was.
I said the same thing, man. You showed me that video, and I was like, no way.
So now we have a better one with. I'll send it to you. We have a better one now where we added smoke, because I had that caution tape, and I showed the caution tape. The wind coming in the apartment, and then wind getting sucked out the tube. So the chief's looking at my caution tape. He goes, I thought you had a wire in there and you're bending the wire to fool me.
Mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Can you talk about, just circling back a little bit, but you said that when you're responding to incidents in high rises, one of the things you're looking at is the ventilation profile of the building. I've never heard that before when in regards to a high rise. So what does that mean?
It's really just a quick visual snapshot. Like if I pull up and I see a building with lots of balconies or a lot of air conditioning units hanging out of it, it gives me a good idea on what strategy I'm going to use. If I pull up to a building and I don't see any of that, it's all glass. Well, then I can think, okay, this is, I start going down the right path as far as what equipment I want to bring off the truck right off the hop. Our giant 30-inch fans, you can see behind me, we do positive pressure isolation right off the get-go. So we can stop smoke from going in the attack stairwell or the evacuation stairwell just by using positive pressure isolation. Then our fan cart that goes to staging, if it's an older building, we're going to use a different tactic. If it's a newer building, we're going to use a different tactic. So we set that ventilation profile up simply by just a quick look snapshot of the building. When we get inside, we start looking for those cues that are going to help us be successful. A lot of departments out there, the first thing they do is cut the roof hatch open, get that smoke. Not us. We contain that smoke now. We keep the roof hatch closed, and we take the smoke where we want to take it to. Instead of chasing smoke throughout the building, we want to lock it down to the fire floor, and then when we're ready, we select that path that we want to send it to. And it's either by using spiral ducting, or sometimes we do use the roof hatch if it's gone way beyond the fire floor. So yeah, it's just a quick snapshot of it. It could have smoke shafts. They're great, older type system. But if it's got a smoke shaft in it, again, we're going to seal that hallway down. Post fire, we're going to take an elevator right to the fire floor. We're going to open the lobby doors. or we're going to vent out the fire department. So we have different tactics. You know, the high rise, I like to get an elevator just for us, and we know when to take the elevator to the fire floor post fire to get rid of smoke. And we're using stack effect. Sometimes you don't even take fans off the truck. We'll just use you know, the science behind stack effect, and we'll clear smoke that way. And on average, it takes us 2 minutes per floor to get rid of smoke.
You gotta put out videos. We gotta push this stuff. I'm telling you, some of the stuff I saw you do, it was some type of magic. I mean, it really is. And then not only that, but you take it a few steps further, right? Like, you know, your processes and tactics, like we've been talking about, are driven through trial and error and science. And then, you know, you have an incredible cachet of different types of equipment, a lot of homemade, or I don't know if homemade, but designed
Home
through
engineered, maybe.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Home enginered.
Yeah,
Well,
home engineered, right?
Directly in front of me, I have a prop that I made up. It's a floor plate of a high-rise building, and could probably turn my screen around and show you. But I light a cork on fire and blow it out, and I put it in there, and I use my spiral ducting so I can show how we can create a flow path, how we can get rid of smoke, how we can isolate the fire floor, and it's got a glass top on it. And how many units? I guess it got 10 units, 2 elevators, and a hallway. And then once you show students that, hey, we're really making a big mountain out of a molehill when we start getting rid of smoke, and we show them this, and they're like, oh wow. Now we use a hair dryer for our wind impacted fires, but hey, it works.
Sure.
And now with our training tower, we're using the artificial smoke. The one fire that I really want to use the spiral ducting, it's kind of a funny story. So I get up there, no one else on the job saw the spiral ducting. We get 25 feet inside. We throw it out the window. We break 90. We're setting up another 25-foot section. We got 75 feet of spiral ducting. We're 75 feet away from the fire department. A crew comes in to do an overhaul, sees the spiral ducting, and they throw it all out because they've never seen it before. So,
hey fellas, we need that. We need that back. I have to ask, you alluded to a picture you posted the other day of yourself, and you had all this piping. You were holding what in God's name is that? What is that?
So we have the floor below nozzle there. We have a cocklock nozzle.
So this is all your nozzles in like a carrying kit, if you will.
Yeah. So we can get through smaller elevators, revolving doors. We did have the 8-foot New York floor below nozzle, but some of our elevators and revolving doors we couldn't get it through. So this one breaks into 2. But the new elevator breaks.
I get it now. I saw all of this and I'm like, this looks like piping for an industrial mixer. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then now it makes sense. So it's just the different nozzles packaged together so it's easier to carry. And then, if you're going to take one, you might as well take the cachet with you, right? Is that the thought?
We don't like to come back to the truck. We just one clean sweep. Everything comes forward. If we don't need it, we bring it back. But if we do need it, we're not going to waste that reaction time and go all the way back to the truck and get it. That picture too that was posted, I had a 4-inch coring bit in my other hand, and this is
cool.
But firefighters get up and they start venting, and they get the saw and they start doing our traditional cuts. We'll go up with our battery powered coring tool, put one 4-inch hole, and we'll throw a resin in. And then we go to the next one and we use our coring tool and we drill either holes through walls, through floors, through ceilings to attics, and we can deploy it so much faster and almost effortlessly because everything's battery powered, everything's quick. And we still do stuff traditionally. Just the high-rise crew will have that specific tag. We still cut, we still vent, but we'll go up and we'll put one small hole and we'll put our resin distributor in, or we'll use our cocklock nozzle, or we'll do something with bloom frame construction. We can kind of get ahead of the fire quicker now that we can put inspection holes in and have a quick look. And it's not exhausting. We're not swinging axes and haligans and hooks and getting tired. We're letting the tool do all the work for us. We stick our head in, nope, the fire's not here. Oh, yes, it is here. So it's just as fast as that thing can drill is as fast as we can have a look. So it seems odd to see a firefighter going in with a big, hammer drill, battery powered 4-inch coring tool. But if we're just doing
Well,
quick,
it is
quick.
so. I mean, I want to see. I want to be on the roof. I want to experience that. But it makes sense to me because you think of all this, in the Northeast where Rob and I are. I mean, we are truck exhaustive, right? Like we cut roofs, pitched or flat, and we do inspection cuts, and we cut trenches and commercial build, and it's labor
Yeah.
intensive.
It is.
And then I'm thinking of your 4-man company up there with a battery operated coring drill and a Breslin distributor with a shutoff. You drill a hole, the guy moves 10 feet away, starts drilling another one. The guy sticks the pipe in, the Breslin spins around for 30 seconds, right? Knocks it down, goes to the next hole. And you think about that, and I'm like, holy shit. Like it does, it's got to work.
I think about all the manpower that goes into a trench cut.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I mean,
And when you're doing a trench, you got to have a charged line up there anyway. It's not like you're cutting one or two holes in a residential dwelling, right? I mean, this is, when you decide to cut that much real estate, part of a trench is having that charged 1 or 2 lines up there, because if that fire starts to run, you have to be able to take care of that. And so, I mean, you already got the line up there anyway.
Right. And it kind of drives, even with our department, seeing, the high-rise crew get there, and we're bringing our standpipe kit to the roof, and we're bringing our high-rise packs bottle loaded, and we're taking it to the roof. And it kind of floors everybody. Like even the standpipe kit, the gate and gauge and bleeder valve, and we go to the roof with it, and we go all through these fire escapes, and we get on the roof, we deploy our packs, and we make an improvised standpipe. The pump operator can over pump us, and we just set our gate and gauge, and we have 3 different nozzles up there. We set it for each one of our nozzles, and we're no longer relying on the pump operator. We're just doing our thing with our hose packs. That's why we don't call them high-rise packs. Actually, call them hose packs, because we can use them for residential dwellings to get up on top quicker, and then just drop a length down. And have
you were telling me recently that you guys had just done this process at a fire not too long ago. Was it a church or something? I think you said, or
yeah, we did it on a church. It was converted into a high rise. We did it at a Queen and Sumac fire, and we just did it on Friday again. And it's just, we just the hoses on our packs. We go to the roof, we drop it, we drill our hole, throw the Breslin in, and go to the next one. Go to the next one. Go to the next.
This is accessing the crawl space, the cock loft, the attic space, whatever there is between the living floor and the roof. Correct?
Yeah. It's really popular in row houses, because if we get that common attic and that fire is going down, we'll get up. And the cool thing about the Breslin is you can leave it unstaffed, so you can go up, right, deploy it. The giant sprinkler head hanging there, and then we'll go below, and we'll have that one on the pole. It's it's an 1.5-inch Breslin, and we'll poke that up in the ceiling. So we have that double protection, and we've been very successful in stopping it from taking the neighborhood type thing.
And this is done with a 4-man company, or do you then adopt another company to give you a hand?
I don't like to adopt another company, but we do for our high-rise fires. For our residential, we'll split up into two. So 2 will go to the roof, 2 will go inside. So we kind of jockey back and forth depending on what tactic that we're going to use.
I think it's really interesting in the traditions of the United States Fire Service with the engine and truck, if you will. You guys certainly bridge that gap. I mean, you do suppression and you do support, right? And truck work. And so you never really know what you're getting into until you arrive and really size up the task at hand, because it might not be a 25-story building. It might be a 3-story building with large setbacks and heavy fire load and you know what I'm saying? Like, so you guys never really know what you're getting into.
No. And the cool thing that, and a lot of our incident commanders, this is kind of new to them as well. So when we get there, like, Chief, give us an assignment that no other truck can do. Like, everyone can pull hose, everyone can, move a line, but we need to do something that's unique to us. So if it's our cock loft nozzle, if it's our floor below nozzle, whatever the case may be, we need to do that. And if you don't need that tactic, then there's really no point in us being at the call. But even if there's not a fire package that can use, let's say, at a residential house fire, well, then we'll switch to ventilation.
Yeah.
Right. So there is something pretty much on our truck for every type of fire.
Yeah, and your truck should be said it is a rescue style truck that you are running, right? So it's got, I think, a lift off the back for the heavier equipment, things like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we have a portable compressed air foam system on there. That's for catastrophic failures in a high-rise building, but we can use them on hydro vaults. We can use them in our tunnels, our subways, and it's basically throws out 600 US gallons of finished foam, and we can hook that up to a standpipe system if we needed to as well. And
This
that's for
this truck has got apparatus innovations written all over it. So I'm gonna have to renew my passport and get my ass to the North Country, because I got to get up there and see you, because I think there's so much unique things that you guys do, from tactics to equipment and everything in between. It's incredible.
I just think of like the knee wall fires that I've been in.
Yep.
Where we couldn't find which knee wall it is, and then you're down the hallway and you're like, shit, it's not here, it's behind us. And then there's that one guy that's like, I got the hook, and he puts it through the wall,
right?
And everything changes like that, and you're like now spraying him with the water because he's like, what are you doing? And everything changes. And like so many of us have been burned in those knee wall fires, especially like in Poughkeepsie. You can have the third story is essentially that half that's been converted into an apartment. So
yeah, 100%.
And do you guys have that cellulose problems in the States? Like if you have a fire with cellulose in it, that whole ceiling has to come down. I don't know if you guys do that. So
I don't know what you're talking about, to be honest with you. So
okay, so we have cellulose installations.
Cellulose.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I thought you said silos, like for the farm.
No, sorry. Cellulose. What
Rob, he's from Canada. Cut him some slack, Rob.
Yeah,
he's from Canada.
It's my strong accent. It's hard to understand. But
yeah, Vietnamese right there.
Yeah, we'll use those nozzles. Not the ceiling still has to come down, but we'll use those nozzles to make sure that the fire's been knocked down, where we can pull it down and not worry about fire extension.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just that coring alone. I mean, typically on knee wall fires, by the time we get to opening up the knee walls, the fire is already running that void. And like Rob said, it goes from, tenable to lights out and pretty good heat very, very quickly if we don't get a handle on it. And a lot of times, the trucks on that roof, they're making a cut at the peak. They're not making a cut below the knee wall. Right. And so we don't do any of those lower, especially on like a sharp pitch, Rob, like where you are.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I lived in those houses for a couple of years up there, know, so, where you have that space, nobody's cutting below that knee wall to the end of the ridge, to the roof line. But with your coring tool, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. And what happens there is you make a hole in that knee wall and you stick your nozzle in.
Yeah.
And it does that exact hole. That's it. Whereas we'll stick our nozzle in, we'll have 160 foot reach of stream.
Right.
So we don't have to drill it. We don't have to keep putting holes. We'll put that one hole, and then we'll go 80 foot down this way and 80 feet down that way, do another hole, and we'll spray water that way too. So it's way more effective, I think. But again, not that it's the end all be all, but I think other departments should certainly try it and see if it works for them.
I agree.
Especially that Q decking roofing. When it starts traveling through that Q decking, we just keep cutting holes and cutting holes. But we'll just get ahead of it, cut one hole, and we'll put a certain type of nozzle there to either hold it or put it out.
Brent, let me ask you something. You talked about we've been hitting a lot of the high-rise stuff, and we talked about it before, the high-rise on its side, the Home Depot, the box store, any building with a standpipe. So what are some of the pitfalls that we see when we're going to that big box store? I know I have a Home Depot in my first two. There's a Lowe's down the street from where I live. What are some of the things that we can pick up from the high-rise unit when it comes to dealing with a fire in that occupancy?
So with us, and we do run those fires on the high rise, we'll get there and we'll see how low that smoke's banked down. Because the reason why those buildings ceiling heights are so high is to allow people to get out, allow that void to fill up with smoke, and kind of hold it up that 6 foot mark. So us as a high rise, if they're not making good forward progress, we can give them a portable ground monitor. If that's not working, we're going to get our giant fans going and start working the smoke. Like as far as that's what the high rise would do.
I would never think that adding a fan to a box door is a good thing. And like, just kind of go down that road with me real quick. Like,
right. So if we have a bunch of openings, that's not a good thing. If everyone's out of the building and we have a line stretch from a truck, our lifeline out, we'll actually seal that building up, and we'll make our own entrance, our own exit, and we'll start, the best place to get rid of that smoke. And it's generally, we start behind the nozzle team and, get that smoke to lift for them so they can get in and get out. Like one of those fans, it's 26, almost 2,700 CFM. Sorry, 26,000 CFM. That's incredible. It's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And we have 2 of them. If we can't do it, if it's one of those fires where it's, a very, very big warehouse, we have a second high-rise unit that's going to bring 2 more fans. We also have a fan truck we can bring as well, but we're finding these 30-inch fans are easier to set up, faster to deploy. And, we're doing a tactic called positive pressure isolation. So we're actually not clearing the smoke at that time. We're just isolating it. So when we're ready, once the fire's been extinguished, we can actually vent it properly.
I struggle
getting rid of smoke, but
I struggle so often with you find that the basic principles of ventilation have to be constantly explained to people because they just don't get it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a simple, when you say positive pressure ventilation, we're forcing air into a building. The force needs to cause pressure. You pressurize the building, then you find your opening. You open after the building's pressurized and the contents is forced out, right? And there's a little bit of science behind it.
There is,
but,
and yeah.
Go ahead.
We're not really using that. What do they call that? The positive pressure attack. Remember they were calling it that?
Yeah.
So it's not that. We're just isolating it.
Yeah.
So,
I get that. I get it.
I see it and I'm like, oh man, that was disproved years ago because it has to be a perfect scenario. And we're like, no, it's a little different because we have, the CFMs now to back it up, and we're isolating the smoke. We're not actually clearing it at this time.
Right.
So
I get it. But I'm talking about the simple principles of it, right? Like you said before, your high-rise events are smoke events primarily, right? Unless you have a wind-driven fire that's overtaking, if there is a sprinkler system in the building, or it's overtaking the common hallway, right? But other than that, typically it is a smoke event and you're worried about the upper floors, the fire floor, the upper floors, and so on. So you really got to understand the science and principles behind ventilation in order to be effective in your job and to do it quickly, right? Because the quicker we can get that smoke to lift and get pushed out, the safer and better it becomes for us, and for, obviously for the people that aren't even or don't have any protection whatsoever, right? So there is that know-how and need for understanding. I just find that so many people lack that understanding of, I went on a smoke call the other night. They got every freaking window open.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, guys, what are we doing here? Like, let's think about this for a minute, right? Start closing windows. And they're like, what? I'm like, start closing windows.
I know, and they get all out of shape.
Yeah.
Actually, Rob, you were mentioning that one thing we look for, the ventilation profile. If I pull up to a newer high rise and there's a stairwell that leads to the outside, doesn't lead to the lobby, and that door self opens, in our city, that means that stairwell is positive pressure for us. So that's a huge win. We're not going to positive isolate that stairwell because it's already done for us. So those are those cues that we're looking for when we pull up to a high rise.
So would that hallway then become your is that the common hall for the escape? Is that the
actually that'll be that full stairwell, which will be positive pressure already for us. So we'll get up to the fire floor. The stairwell will be clear. It might be a dirty hallway or a clean hallway, but when we open that door, generally that smoke will hold right there. and
Okay.
it won't come in that
Huh.
stairwell. But the buildings have that already. We don't need to do anything.
Are
Yeah.
those
Engineered.
labeled? Like, do you know, or you just know
They're
from? Okay.
Yeah, I just know from experience, but that's why I'd love to have a placard on every high-rise building, because we have high-rise buildings with 22 stairwells, and not all of them are
Yeah.
pressurized. So, it starts to get complicated.
Well, that's why I was asking too. Do you, is that the resident escape stairwell? Is that the fire attack stairwell? I mean, sometimes, depending on tactics and considerations, that you try to make it that way. In my little knowledge of high-rise firefighting.
Yeah, so with us, we try to get the crews up there as fast as possible, 2 floors below, and then they got to pick what the attack stairwell is. Once we know what the attack stairwell is, then we can say, okay, the best fan placement would be here, here, and here, and then we'll take more fans up to 2 floors below. And any firefighter out there that is doing ventilation, you have to be a little bit patient. And we're in such a rush, but if you just pause for a second and use your flashlight or use your caution tape and just see what's really happening, because you're all bundled up, you got your face piece on, and you can't feel anything. So use your piece of caution tape, hold it. Hey, it's okay. This is where the smoke's moving. Open a door and it starts going in. Okay, I get it. I see where this smoke is going to end up, but it takes a couple seconds to pause,
Patience,
figure out what's going to happen.
So speaking of patience, I mean, we've been hitting tactics and it's already been an hour, just so you know, Brent, already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how quick this goes for sure. Right. But so my thing is this, right? I absolutely want to just capture a little more about yourself. We talked a lot of tactics, and I think we're going to have you back on just for a tactics and slideshow on equipment and so on. I'm already picturing this in my brain as to what we could do to, get this information out there with you would be awesome. But yourself, I mean, you are the captain of this company. You, in 27 years in the city, have had to see incredible change, especially with everything you just spoke about. So incredible change over your career. Exciting. Still love it. Still loving every day.
Oh yeah, there's nothing I wouldn't do. They actually said, "Do you want to write for district chief?" I said, "Man, I can't picture myself being a district chief. Like, I'm boots on the ground. I'm developing tactics. I'm teaching people how to stretch lines in these complicated buildings. I can't see doing the chief thing. I just love it too much."
And how exciting is that? I mean, so many people say the company officer is the most rewarding position, in the firehouse. And your company, you are specialized. Do you still get probationary members, or do you get people that transfer over? How does that process work?
Every now and again, we do get a probationary firefighter, but our recruits now, well, I guess over the last 3 years, I've been exclusively training them. So they actually know more coming out of our recruit class than firefighters on the job. So right now, my push is to get regular firefighters that aren't on the dedicated high-rise units to actually learn high-rise firefighting, and we're getting better. Like, every day I go into work now, we're training 3,000 firefighters all over again on that shoelace drill, adding to the front section and moving large diameter hose, and wait till phase 3 and phase 4 come in. We have a way of stretching hose up a stairwell. I can't wait to share it with you. It's easy. It's fantastic.
I love that. I know when we were doing the roundtable last month, we went around. I was asking some questions, and the one question that was unscripted was the one I asked at the end. That it said, you still in love with the job? What do you find rewarding? What, and so on and so forth. And you told a story that I loved, and it was about a teaching and instilling, and then happening to hear one of your younger guys passing that down to another guy. As the captain of your company, I mean, it's got to be exciting to have guys dialed in as much as you are, and so on. And in the discipline that you guys bring, I mean, God, the last time we spoke before today, you said, "Oh yeah, I just got off shift. We had three high-rise fires on that tour. 3." I'm like, what? Like, just, it's kind of unheard of, And so, you guys are doing this work and you're doing it daily, and you have you were telling some stories about your guys and just the camaraderie and the personalities, but it's got to be exciting. Maybe just speak a little bit about the reward of that company officer position, because, seeing so much change and being a catalyst and a big part of that change, you know, it speaks to your character, because before you said, trying to teach and instill these values over the last couple of years and these new tactics, you never got upset or hurt by any pushback or non-understanding, and so on. And so that speaks to you, which is incredibly amazing, Rob. I mean, you talked about patience, right? Understanding, temperament. I know you as an incredible gentleman, but just being that company officer, that position to you, talk about it.
It's absolutely golden. So my crew is pretty dialed in, and I love the fact that I can split the crew up and I can trust them to be where I want them to be there. And that in itself is it's like, I feel like I'm taking part of me and it's going there to do something, and then I get to go. But what I tell my crew is, like, as your captain, I'm going to get us, the best opportunity to get in and fight this fire. You got to trust me in that. But I need you to be able to put those tactics into play while I'm, talking to, an instant commander or sizing up the building. When I come back, I expect things to be staged and ready. So my job as a captain is, obviously the safety and come up with the end game or what tactic we're going to use. But really, I'm fighting to get my crew in the best position, to get the best job at the fire, basically.
I love that. I'll get you in there. You got to perform.
you gotta make me look good.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So let me ask, what's next, man? You got a hell of a career going. A lot of good love. Yeah, go ahead.
We're just working on, trying to get things so we can share it. It's hard because when you have department logos and department names, and social media, you gotta there's a thin line there that you gotta watch.
Sure.
We want to share it, and not that we want to brag or anything like that, but we want to share it so someone can take that same tactic, try it, test it, and say, hey, you know what? Did you think of this? Did you think of that? No, we didn't. And if we can come better, the departments around us can become better. North America becomes better. The world becomes better. It's all about the safety for firefighters, and it's all about the occupants that we're going to go help. And if we can do that quicker and better, more efficient, then I think everyone should be on the same page. Like fire departments, at least in Canada, we were like sports teams. We kind of fight and we keep everything a secret, and we had our own strategies. And now Pandora's box is open. If you're a firefighter in Canada, in the US, in Cuba, and in Australia, we're all the same. We're all type A personalities. We all want to get in there and work. So why don't we just all be on the same team and do it? That's my point of view anyways.
I love that.
I think you've had a really good opportunity with this high-rise stuff to travel the world. And I know we were talking a little bit about some of the conferences that you have gone to. And like, I've made some friends in England, in London, but like, can you kind of talk about this brotherhood? Because a lot of times in our podcast, we talk about brotherhood and fire service culture, and like, tell me about the brotherhood that's internationally, because you've met some of these brothers from across the world, and like, touch on that for a minute.
I've been to France. I was there prior to the Notre Dame fire. But talking to those firefighters there, I mean, they are so dialed in. And I took little tips and tricks from them and brought it back, and I told them a bunch of tips and tricks. And now we email back and forth. There's a hard translation there, and the same with London, England. I spoke at FireX a couple of times. I'm part of a T90 group. I represent Canada. Curtis Massey represents the U.S. Along with someone else from FDNY. But we're a pretty close group, and we just bounce tactics off each other. But it feels like we're, we see each other just like you and I see each other now. But it's like we're best friends, and we have the same interests and the same love, and we just it's just great. And I even take my wife to some of these conferences, and she loves it. She meets their wives, and we go on these building tours, and talk to designers and talk to firefighters and talk to chiefs. And it's making our world smaller.
Yeah. And the friendship is priceless. I think that's one of the things that I've really, I mean, it was 2012 was when I met my friend Billy, and we've kept that friendship going since then. So I think it's good to talk about that, because we don't hear about it outside of maybe North America as much as I think we should.
Yeah, I was really worried about you guys, because I said, well, if I can fool them with us driving on the wrong side of the road, do I really want to be their friends?
Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, nice. I'll tell you, meeting you and working with you on that Snap Type project was a lot of fun, and I'm so happy you were able to make it across the border during COVID, because as you put it, you pulled up to the gate, and they're just shaking their head at you like, nope, turn around.
There was no car in front of me. There's no car behind me. And every single customs officer came out. And the first guy said, see the dust in the parking lot? I'm like, yeah. He goes, no one gets through. This dust has been here for weeks. He was obviously exaggerating. So I just explained to him the whole process and what we're doing. And I might have made a friend at the border. And
yeah, there you go. Yeah. And no problems getting back?
Getting back, so I had to do the COVID test in the States to get back across the border. I had to do one at the border, and then I had to do a 14-day isolation. And at day 10, I had to do another COVID test. So basically, I had 4 COVID tests to travel back and across the border, plus 14 days hiding at the cottage.
You did get 14 days of R&R at the cottage, though.
Okay, it felt good.
Did you work on any high-rise stuff while you were there?
I did. That's when I came up with those 10 videos that I posted just last Sunday. I said,
awesome.
All right, I'll make videos. I made 10 videos, posted them online. I showed great. Rob, I whittled a stick even. So, jackknife out and I whittled a stick. And
awesome. Yeah. I love it. So listen, I would love to get some content put together with you more than what we did. And so we're going to have to look at future plans. I would love to take the trip north. I've never been to Canada before. I've seen it. I've looked at it, but I've never crossed into it. So, but I would really love to get up and see these high-rise units. I think what you guys are doing there, and the passion you have for science and tactics and experience, and you mix that all together, and you come up with some interesting ways of combating some difficult firefights. And I just kudos to you, brother. I mean, everything that I've learned about you, the videos I've seen and the teachings you're doing really are defining and bringing forth a lot of experience and know-how into an industry or a segment of this industry that not many people know much about. So bravo to you, man. Keep up that good fight. I think you're bringing tremendous value to usually we say the American Fire Service, but in this case, the International Fire Service. For sure.
Exactly. International Fire Service. I like that. But yeah, all my stuff's, it's free. It's online. It's highrisefirefighting.com, and just go on there. And if I did make a error or misspoke, let me know, because I'll correct it. Because the more information we can get out there, the more it comes back and makes it better.
And I love that. And you hit on that before, and you talked about the friendships you developed. And I think, as you're talking about sport teams now, where you used to be competitive, but now we're willing to share. I think, we have the means and the communication now more than ever to be able to share what others are doing. We used to be, and it wasn't just you in Canada. And so, I mean, the United States were the same way. I mean, it was almost like this is our house and we don't tell people how we operate or what we do. And it's, I think part of that is done for cockiness, but the other part is you're not sure if somebody's doing it better than you, and you don't want to tell them how you're doing it, because you might not be doing it the way you should be, or there's a better way out there,
So true. True.
So, but I think now more than ever, we have a environment of wanting to better each other and better our tactics and departments and make it a little bit safer. And if your tactics can make it a bit safer for me, and I can teach you something, I mean, that's where the win is, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And now with the social media, it's just getting that much easier to actually share it and find new people.
Yeah. So, okay. So here we are. And what I want to say is it is highrisefirefighting.com. Everything we talked about tonight, tactics and strategy wise, is represented on your website, I think, for most of what we've talked about. I do want to end it talking about your shoelace drill, right? Which is how you get the line pushed down. When you talk about moving 50 feet at a time, you're only moving 50. You're not moving 250, 300, whatever, right? It is difficult to talk through without seeing the video to support that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to talk about it real quick about how you guys deployed down the hallway, right? But then what I'd like to do is when we put this out, I'd love to put your instructional video attached to it. So we'll talk about that afterwards and see if we could do that. But it is such a unique way and so foreign to what we know here, or at least what I know and how I've been taught. Would you mind going into the process of just, with your bundles and how you deploy that line to the fire department?
I know Chicago was trying to do this back in the day as well. They just weren't successful. But what was happening to us is we were coming up short. And everyone says, well, you should never come up short. You should always do the perfect estimated stretch. But with high-rise buildings now, with the podium, all bets are off. The stairwells are different. You can have scissor, return, all bets are off. So we were finding ourselves coming up short a lot. When you come up short, you're allowing smoke in that stairwell, and the building starts to wake up, and problems become worse for you. So we're like, every time we shut that standpipe down to add a length, our firefighters aren't protected, and the smoke keeps spreading. Then we add 50 feet at the standpipe, and now we're truly moving 200 to 250 foot of charge, 2.5-inch hose lines. It wasn't working for us. We simply couldn't do it. So then we tried adding to the front section. So we're not shutting down our water supply. We have a 100-foot reach of stream with the tip on. We have 80-foot reach of stream with the tip off. We add our increaser. We still have 80-foot reach of protection, actually more volume because it's a different orifice size. And we hold the fire. The next crew comes up. If it's an underground parking lot, we can say we want to add 50 feet, 100 feet, or 150 feet. If it's a hallway, we'll add 50. So we'll add 50 feet. They'll stretch the line up behind us. They'll give us the female end. When we're ready, we don't need to use our radios. We're talking face to face. We add that 50-foot section. The hose line gets charged. That nozzle team moves forward. We secure the bail because that's the weakest link. Once you secure the bail, that firefighter goes back and increases the pressure a bit for that extra 50-foot section. We also, when you deploy the line behind you, it forms a bite. The backup firefighter grabs that bite and puts the bite on their belly button. They can actually put their hands behind their head and drive forward with that loop on their belly button. If the nozzle firefighter is advancing, the drive firefighter maintains the same pace as the nozzle firefighter. If the nozzle firefighter stops, the drive firefighter will stop, but it'll give him 2 loops. He'll grab 1 loop and roll it up to the nozzle firefighter and lean it against the wall, go back, grab the second loop and bring it up to the nozzle firefighter. And now that preloaded hose is sitting there ready to go. Now both crew members can advance that line. When they come up short, the next crew will come up and they'll add 50 feet. That drive and bite and loop thing is one tactic, but then we'll preload the stairs as well. So we'll put the nozzle into the bottom rung, we'll feed it up the stairs, we'll grab the nozzle, we'll pick it up, and that'll give us a landing effortlessly with just preloading it.
I love it.
So that's one way. Yeah, you kind of have to see it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just, I know, and even when people see it, it's like, it doesn't work, snake oil, no way. Like, you can't do that in a snotty hallway, this and that. And when you watch the process of adding 50, it does defy the standard and traditional ways of moving a line down a hallway. But when you start to put some thought and reason behind it, and then you put practicality behind it and experience behind it, it starts to make sense. And then before you know it, you're looking at it going, wow, this is really a revolutionary way of moving forward. and so
our
on.
eyes
So,
and ears are still on the fire. Like we're still watching the fire. We're still, watching conditions. We're not retreating. We're still actively trying to make that push
right,
down the hallway.
right,
The other thing too, a lot of firefighters have a problem with is, you have that 100-foot reach of protection. Now we're flowing 1,003 liters per minute. I don't know what that is in the States, but we're flowing a lot of water on a dirty hallway. We'll use that reach of stream. We'll tag the door frame and we'll send a firefighter down to close that door if it's safe to do so. And once they get that fire unit door closed, we reset, and now you can set up right out in front of that fire unit again.
265 gallons a minute.
What are you?
It's 265 gallons a minute.
There you go. And I think you guys are trying to get 250, right?
Yep.
typically.
Yeah. So yeah, so you're flowing 250. You got that protection. You have that reach of stream. You can shut that nozzle down because the fire is moving 100 feet in, let's say, 5 seconds. Well, you shouldn't be shutting down, and you shouldn't be adding to the front section because you're still, trying to make that push. That's just my take on it. But with that protection and when you're ready to go, I think it's working for us. Put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the important things that you talk about too, that not many people talk about, is the operational reach of the stream.
Yeah.
Too often we don't put value in that stream, and how far, with a 2.5. I mean, what'd you say, 80 to 100 feet?
Yes.
100 feet with the nozzle, 80 feet without.
We get 100 feet. Yeah. We get 100 feet with the tip on. We get 80 feet with the tip off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 260 gallons per minute.
Right. It's a hell of a lot of firepower and reach, for sure.
And then people will start saying, well, you're doing way more water damage. Well, no, you're not. Because if you look at the science behind it, you're either fighting a fire for 20 minutes or you're fighting it for 6 seconds, both using the same amount of water. You're just flowing it for longer, when you're not using it. So water damage, I think it's a thing that it's a theory in the fire service that we stopped. But the buildings that are sprinklered, they're not worried about water damage. And
I'm not overly concerned either. If I have fire rolling over my head, I am not concerned about my water damage.
Not at all.
I'll tell you that. That's going to be stage 7 in the incident where I start mitigating water.
Yeah. And the cool
fire's been put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good. So Brent, thank you, man. Such a cool conversation tonight that went so fast. I told you that before we started, how quick this goes. I feel like Rob, I feel like all we did was talk strategy and tactics and high rises. We didn't even get his story. We're gonna have to have him back. We gotta. Yeah. I need to know Brent Brooks, the man. I gotta get to know this guy.
Yeah, like probationary firefighter Brent Brooks. I would like to know that.
I mean, a lot of people listen to the audio platform, so they don't watch the YouTube video on this or whatever. But just to throw it out there, this man has got a hell of a mustache, and so he must be a badass fireman. I mean, we'll start there. But Brent, I hope we captured a lot of information. I know we captured a lot of information tonight. I'm sorry if we didn't get enough of your background and story, but
it's not about me. It's about
my man.
Better. So
you brought so much to the table tonight, and it's just fun to watch because over your 27-year career, this is what you've done, and you have such a passion and love for it, and it just speaks volumes, and it showed tonight for sure. And the fact that you're always looking to further your education, educate others, and bring all that to the table just betters the job. So with that being said, thank you, brother. Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Cool.
I owe you guys both some wobbly pops when you come north.
Rob, you got anything on that?
I don't, but
Did you say lollipops or what?
Wobbly pops.
Wobbly pops.
Yeah, they make it a little wobbly.
What
our alcohol is a little bit stronger up here in our beers. That's no secret.
No, and that is probably reason number 4 why I want to come north to see you. So I'm just packaging it up that I want to look at the high rise unit, but I'm sure we're gonna do a couple 12-13%ers up there, no problem. So what's a wobbly pop though? Is that what you call it because it's high?
Beer. It's just a nice way to say a beer.
It's high test, huh?
it'll make you a little bit wobbly after you've had one.
I certainly, after our time last month, I'm certainly looking forward to doing some more. So for sure. But brother, thank you for joining us tonight. I mean, what a great conversation. Brought a lot to the table tonight on the topic of high-rise firefighting, which I know many are not comfortable with talking about, let alone operating at, and so on. So just kudos to you for bringing that forth tonight. And I thank you for sharing that story with us. And I look forward to capturing more content with you in the future. I think there's a lot that you have to share and to better the job. Remind everybody where they can find you, your content, if they want to reach out, they're looking for information or a class from high-rise firefighting. Where can they find you, Brent?
And just highrisefirefighting.com. And I like to travel. So if you're having an event, anything to do with high-rise or standpipes, even if you don't want me to speak, I would love to attend. The more I learn, the better, the more I can share. But yeah, just highrisefirefighting.com and send me information. And I love to travel. So if you're having something, let me know. And that's how I ended up in London, England, because they're having a high-rise event. And I ended up in Houston and Dallas and Fort Worth, and they're having a high-rise event, and obviously H-Rock and Pensacola Beach. And yeah, if you're having something that's high-rise related, please invite me. Even if you don't want me to speak or talk, I'd love to.
I'll sit in the back of the room, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Well, brother, thank you again for joining us tonight. And, like I said, if anybody's got, creates a lot of conversation here on this topic. So Brent's the guy to go to. He's an authority in high-rise firefighting. And I would tell you that if you listen to this podcast and you have any questions or thoughts, or you wanted some backup video to support the conversation tonight, check out his website, highrisefirefighting.com. Captain Brent Brooks out of Toronto Fire Services. Thank you, brother, for joining us tonight. It's an absolute pleasure, and we appreciate your friendship and brotherhood. Stay right where you are. We're just going to end the recording, and then we'll chat for a few minutes. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Rob, you got any closing words?
I have none. This has been awesome. Thank you.
You got like a fortune cookie or anything you want to read to anyone tonight? No? Got nothing? No wisdom to share?
Nope. I'm all wisdomed out.
You look like you're having a rough night tonight, buddy. All right, listen, thank you. And I will leave you with this. Find the job better than you found it. There's a lot of good out there. Keep spreading the good word. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And we appreciate the support on the National Fire Radio platforms. Brent, thank you, brother. Rob, as always, man, I love doing projects with you. Another successful podcast in the books. Brent, thank you, brother. Enjoy Canada, eh? And to everybody tuning in tonight, thank you. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week and listening to another episode on the National Fire Radio podcast channels. We truly appreciate the support. We thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to our interviews, our roundtables, our discussions. It means the world. Like, share, leave a comment. The more we engage, the more we can grow and push the word out and keep making this job better.